We're on. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Armstrong. This is actually my 8th class in the Orville program. I'm kind of winding down. As I have been winding down on most of the hard stuff in the program, I've spent a lot of time recently reflecting on much of the material that we've covered over the last year and a half. Seem to be looking down a lot of common notes written down here, so I'll do this from the hip. And so over the last year and a half, I found myself in a lot of deep thought and reflection on how I can apply everything that I've learned and experienced to what I do every day, to my job, to my life, to being a father, to being busy. Speaking of busy, if you look up, this is actually our master bedroom. We're in the middle of remodeling, so excuse the dust and everything flying around in here. One of the major things I've had to come to terms with as far as this program goes and a lot of the course material is coming to terms with of dealing with feelings. That feelings have been a major factor in pretty much every aspect of this program, and it includes when you're dealing with ethics and ethical decision making. A lot of times you have to take feelings into account, and as a veteran, as a man in general, we don't typically deal with a lot of feelings. And basically, a whole lot of my ethical core, my core, comes from my Christian faith. As a follower of Christ, I try to emulate his example of kindness and compassion, and always delivering the truth, being honest, being straightforward, but doing that coming from a place of love and of peace, not necessarily one of anger, which I have struggled with over the years. In addition to that, I was raised in a very service-centric family. We served. That's basically how we were raised. That's how, for generations, it was. 2 grandfathers who were World War II veterans. Father was a Vietnam veteran. My older brother did 2 tours in Iraq, and now did 2 tours in Afghanistan. We're all cops, soldiers. Several of us have been church ministry leaders of some kind. Involvement in numerous community organizations. We were all volunteer for things. We're volunteers. As kids, we served as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. We were provided opportunities always to do things that we were taught that were right. The helping others, the serving others, and doing for other people before ourselves. One of the big things in our family that we take a lot of pride in is that for generations now we've had members serving in law enforcement. Dad was a cop. 2 brothers are cops. I'm a cop. I have a nephew now who's a police officer in Missouri. That line of service and the ethics and those core values that come with that particular occupation, as well as our military background as well, all have steered us to kind of following the code of doing what is right, of maintaining your integrity, of doing what we think we need to be doing to help others. One of the things that I've done repeatedly over the years through all these organizations is just taking oaths. Probably the most important words of those oaths were to support and defend, and then bear true faith and allegiance to the same. One of the ones that really hit me thinking back on some of them was without reservation and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of which I'm about to enter. Those are action. And as I was looking through, reading chapter 2, the big thing of that chapter that kind of jumped out at me was that talked about applied communication. I'll actually read it here. Is the applied communication moves theory into action, which to me kind of sums up the whole of this whole Orville program, which is being taking the theory and the philosophy, the psychology, the actual ideas of putting all these things together, and then creating a practical application of all these principles to what we do every day, apply it to our lives. So that was those repeated oaths of enlistment, of office, of the positions that I've held, whether it was as a Boy Scout or as a special agent. It's meant something to me, and that's how I've tried to live my life out to those, to meet up to those standards, to meet those values. Of all those organizations, the one word that comes up, the core value for all of them, whether it's most used, it's similar if not identical for each one of them, and it comes down to integrity. The simple definition of integrity is doing what's right, regardless of who's watching, even if no one's watching, doing the right thing. Beyond that, it's being accountable. In Johnson's text, Organizational Ethics, a practical approach, which is kind of my ideal for doing everything, is doing everything practically. Johnson talked about camp, and there was in that section there was a reference to a group of coworkers refusing to help each other. Now that was unethical. Having coworkers that you may not like or get along with or have different values than, not helping them, not steering them clear of obstacles, throwing them under the bus, or just standing by and watching them throw themselves under the bus. They're all unethical. They're all not what we should be doing as human beings, as good teammates, as good team leaders. We shouldn't be allowing that. And mostly as it was written in there about treating humanity as the end and not necessarily the means. That our humanity, our human interaction, the people that we interact with day to day, that is what we should be doing with life, not necessarily how we can use them to get to where we're going. A lot of it was talked about Aristotle, and I'm running a little long here. I'm almost to 9 minutes, so I'll go ahead and wrap this up. In Johnson's text, they talk about Aristotle focusing on your goods of the soul as opposed to gaining pleasure in objects or materials. And we need to use these goals to guide our ethical ship, basically, be our moral compass. We talked about the list of things. Of course, now, as a father, most important thing for me is providing an example to my children, and being a leader in my job, in my profession, is providing an example and relaying the experiences that I've had, mistakes that I've made, things that I've done wrong in the past, to hopefully develop them to where they will not make those same mistakes. As a younger brother, I have 2 older brothers. I went through a lot of my life watching them screw things up royally, and for the most part, I have not repeated too many of those mistakes. Of course I did, but not all of them. Having an example ahead of me I was able to avoid some of those issues. Like I said, most importantly, having 3 little human beings look at me every day, it's most important to me to provide an example to them, to teach them better than I was taught, so that as they grow up, as they become examples to others, they can provide an example and to teach better than me. So this is kind of a way of passing it on, of being honest, of owning up to mistakes when I make them, and just trying to be the best man that I can be. So thanks, guys, and I'll see you online.